Welcome everyone, and a warm welcome to this stream of events, which is coming from the Pocket Project, which is dedicated to the restoration of fragmentation in our world, and from the non-profit work of Thomas Joubert to the world. And we're wanting to offer this truly as a gift. So also many of the beautiful conversations we will have with people like Thomas, Charles Eisenstein, William Ury, Pat McCabe, many others are also going to be recorded and offered for free afterwards. Yeah, and we're wanting to do this because I guess we really feel deeply moved. You know, we're dedicated to growing awareness around how individual, ancestral, and collective trauma is co-shaping our world. We have like two strands running into human history. One is the resilience and the wisdom and the resourcing we have built through the learning of our ancestors, generation upon generation. And the other is the pain that was so big that it could not be integrated, that it was left lying in the shadows to wait for a moment in the future when people like us come and become aware enough and resourced enough to realize that this has not been looked at. This has not been acknowledged. This transgression of sacred law, this genocide, this taking of life has not been acknowledged, has not been bowed down in front of, and has not melted, been able to melt in our hearts. Yeah, so many people like Thomas Joubert, like Agangak, who's comes from Greenland, have been speaking about the necessity to start melting the ice in our hearts. And it feels as if instead of doing that, we're melting the ice on our ice caps. And yeah, maybe in some way the two are going together. Yeah, but that is why we are here, because we see that the climate change that we're facing, which is the same as this possible sixth mass extinction that we could be facing, the first dying of species that is entirely created by humans. Yeah, that this lies on a lake of collective trauma. And the way we respond to it also. So here we are at COP26, and Anna and I and many others have the joy, the responsibility, and sometimes also hardship of being here. And I say hardship, this is actually the 10th time that I'm at a COP, pretty much, every year since 2009. And so it might be the 11th, And there's a very specific vibration that comes with these UN climate conferences. And so just by the way, COP stands for Conference of the Parties. And this is organized by the UN Framework Convention of Climate Change, which is also called the UNFCCC. Yeah, and we experience that these events come with a very specific vibration. It's astonishing to see, like many years, it was around 25,000 people arriving in the space of negotiations, and even more people coming as protesters, as activists for social justice. So very big groups of very diverse people, heads of state, government negotiation teams, scientists, NGOs, interfaith movements, the young people, Extinction Rebellion, they're all here. So there's the goodwill of that. I've sometimes been touched walking around, meeting with ministers from different countries, and it bubbles over with people who are deeply touched by what is happening on our planet and who are deeply dedicated to change. There's also huge amounts of desperation, and possibly more this year than ever before. Even though I don't know whether I should say that, because, desperation has always been part of it. And there is a huge level of hyperactivation, is what I would call it. We need to do it now. We're far too late. We should have done this in the 80s. It's like we agreed in Paris in 2015, the Paris Agreement, the historical agreement that was forged by people like Christiana Figueres, the then executive secretary of the UNFCCC, by creating the magic. Imagine this, bringing together 195 countries that signed an agreement to limit, with the intention of limiting global temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius and ideally 1.5, to build more resilience globally to respond to increasing climate impacts, and to adequately fund emission reductions and other climate efforts in all countries, and especially those countries that are being hit hardest and have done least to initiate climate change. Yeah, that was the agreement. And here we are this year, 5 years later. The agreement is passed on actually to national countries, which are then responsible to curb their carbon emissions, to produce what are called their nationally determined contributions towards the global situation. And this is the first 5-year mark where we are waiting for reports from countries. And as far as I know, and you may correct me, I'm not an expert and information is changing daily. But as far as I know, only half of countries have so far even reported. And what we see with even countries like China, as far as I know, not yet having sent in their report. And from what we know, we're far behind our emission limits. And we're also far behind the pledge that was made to bring $100 billion together to fund climate action in those countries in the Pacific, in Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, that are often carrying the brunt of climate change events, that have not been part of the industrialized nations that gained a lot of wealth. They have not been part of creating the emissions in the first place. Yeah, and this pledge is also not being met yet. We are far behind. So here we are, and the stakes are high. And we just saw the opening. So the first 2 days of the COP event are the world leaders gathering here in Glasgow, in Scotland, in the United Kingdom, And there were some really strong opening remarks. If you get to see it, I know it's going around online. There's the addressing of the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Amor Motley, who spoke really strongly, for instance, challenging world leaders to pick up their leadership, to really come home to the fact that there is no country that can survive alone, be wealthy and well alone. There is no wellness or prosperity when only a third of the world currently live in prosperity, while 2/3 of the world are experiencing increasing hardship. Yeah, and the calls are high, they're hot, they're intense, they're loud. And we've become used to, over the years, many words, increasingly intense. And even when entering COP, I was there yesterday to get my badge for the Blue Zone where the negotiations are taking place. From tomorrow, we will bring interviews to you every day in this time slot, which will come directly from the Blue Zone with different players that are very deeply involved. Yeah, and today we're just in preparation still and just speaking from our Airbnb here in Glasgow. Yeah, and the sense immediately when you enter the space is like a hot mixture of incredibly good intentions, very high stakes, very fast energy, and also many indigenous voices, interfaith voices that are really calling for a grounding, bringing in spaciousness. But this doesn't find much space in the negotiations. Yeah, so that is really why we are here and why we want to share the space with you. Because, as I started out with, climate change is building on, and this is our deep understanding, on the unintegrated pain of tens of thousands of years that has been clogging up our nervous systems and our collective nervous system, our human intelligence. Individual, ancestral, collective trauma is a deep part of the reason why we are not yet able as humanity to adequately address what we are facing. And we know that as we learn now, we have learned in the past years with the newly growth in focus on the way that individual trauma symptoms shape us, shape our institutions, shape the way we see the world, shape the way we respond to the world. We're also coming more and more to understand how ancestral trauma, the trauma of the suppression of gender, the racialized trauma, the trauma of colonialism, the trauma of genocide and war, how all of this is carried in our systems and brings with it, I feel sometimes, a layer of numbness, a layer of shame. And so we want to start where we are now, here in our bodies. And I'm just coming back to the gallery view so I can see you all, and you can just choose whether you want to come to gallery view or, but just connecting to you here right now. Yeah, who we are here in our bodies, and just acknowledging the places where the wisdom of our ancestors streams in our nervous system, but also the places where the pain of our ancestors is held in our nervous system, and the places where the pain and the shame, whether we and our ancestors were in the roles of perpetrators, of victims, how this pain and shame keeps us cut off from our own selves, from each other. And as I said, you know, the focus on individual trauma is teaching us, as we look at each other, to realize how often we've asked this question of, what is wrong with you? You know, assuming that something must be wrong with the other because they don't see me, they don't understand me, they don't feel my good intention. You know, and that now we really ask, what happened to me? What happened to you? That we have these patterns creating reality between us despite our best intentions. And with that comes maybe an acknowledgement of the places where our hearts break when we see what we do to each other and what we do to our world on a daily basis. Yeah, and we also can acknowledge how, especially in the West, you know, how we live in a bubble in terms of our relatedness to our ancestry. How cut off many of us are of the lines of ancestors that take us back also to the time when we were connected to the land. And I know, at least, you know, for me, that many of my African friends and Latin American friends are far more connected into and have an alive tradition that helps them to acknowledge how much their ancestors live within them. Yeah, and to acknowledge that, yes, we carry all the information that streams into this body through our genes, through this incredible body that we are anchored in. And beyond that, and maybe we can just take a moment to sink into this together. Once we touch into this biocomputer that is our body, as we look at each other and we acknowledge the good intentions that are alive here in this very space between us, and that are so very alive at COP26, how hard it is for us to fully be part of the planet, sink into this alive earth that our body is born out of and will return to, where we carry the water, we carry the carbon, we carry the metals, we carry the soil, we carry the food that has grown on this earth in our bodies. Our bodies are part of the planet. We have billions of bacteria living in our bodies. We are part of the living system of this planet. We are deeply embedded. And we know that what happens to the planet, literally, if our nervous systems were able to open up fully, we could feel. Thomas Hübel often said that he's waiting for the day when, as humanity, we will be able to feel even one child that goes to bed hungry. And we will say, we need to take care of that child. And I know for myself, I don't know how it is for you, but in the past 10 years, I was traveling a lot. I was flying a lot. I was working for the Global Eco-Village Network. And as I was traveling through countries in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, my body could witness the radicality of what is the destruction that is happening on Earth in a way that my body could not hold and my heart could not hold. Yeah, so, I feel like apologizing maybe that I bring this, I feel like it's a bit of an unshaped expression that I bring to you today. Yeah, but I feel dedicated and we feel dedicated to being here together as vulnerably and as naked as possible. And I know that on this journey through the next 2 weeks, we will be learning every day together. And your presence here is key. I was in a very small group that is part of the core group of Thomas Hübel, where they have a 24-hour meditation temple, actually a Zoom space happening. And I was invited to just come there, and we were meditating together in a small group. And I could literally feel my whole nervous system that was just carrying the buzz of COP26, just allowing for the regulation. And right now here with you, we are feeling each other. I am feeling you feeling me, and you are feeling me feeling you. We are feeling each other. Right now, I am not disconnected from you. And your care and your love is right now touching me. Yeah, and together we can bring this into the field. And yeah, I think it's mainly just, to start off with compassion. Compassion for the world leaders who are having a really hard time leading. For all those representatives from corporations who are here. We're having a really hard time understanding how they can shift radically. Yeah, all of those people from the NGOs, from Extinction Rebellion, from all the protesters who are so furious, the young people who say, enough talk. And holding each other in compassion. That we are here to support each other on this journey. And as Thomas often says, we can only see what we see, and we give thanks for what we see. And we also give thanks for what we don't see. Because this is where we are. This is the truth of where we are. Yeah, and I just want to mention that we have some short interviews lined up with very different people in these slots in the coming days. They will all come, as I said, from the Blue Zone. And we also have some fantastic conversations lined up in the evenings. Tonight will be with Pat McCabe, who's an elder, a First Nations elder, uprooted from her traditions by the school system where Native American children were put into the schools and then brought back. I think it was her parents who were in the schools. But she found her way back to her people, to her tribe, and to her tradition. And she carries her connection to the hoop of life, to the planet, to Vakantanka, the coming together of Vakan and Sisquan, the male and the female, into the divine energies in such a heartfelt way that I think is only possible when you've lost something and then refound it. So she's going to be sharing that with us tonight. And after that, we'll have another half hour of stillness together. And I just invite you to stay tuned. You'll receive our emails on a daily basis with the newest updates of what we will be sharing together. And from my heart to you, just a heartfelt gratitude for your presence here today at this time on the planet. And I am honored to be with you. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone also in the team here. Thank you. And we will see you later. We will see you here every day. I feel like saying, Aho me taku yasin. May this serve the well-being of all. Be safe, be well. Thank you all.